Well, welcome everybody. Wipro, MobileMonday. Tonight's event, Enterprise Sales for Startups. How many people here work in a startup? How many people work in enterprise? Cool. We have a fantastic lineup of panelists here tonight, sharing secrets and selling to the enterprise. You guys want to save your questions to the very end. We're going to have a good chunk, a couple of minutes for Q&A with the panelists. Let's get the show on the road. Oh, important information. Restroom, you're going to have to go back around to where you got your badge, past it, and make a right. So the bathrooms are basically outside of the lobby. So, how many people here first time at MobileMonday?
No. First time at
Wipro. Oh, first time at Wipro. MobileMonday, we're a large developer and startup community, about 60,000 folks across the country. I'm Mario Type, I've been doing this. In June, it will be 20 years. So I've been doing this for a very, very long time. Community demographics here in the Valley, about a third of you are in product, a third of you are in business development, a third of you guys in developer and venture and designers and media. Kind of where to find us. How many people found us on meetup.com? There was that community, a handful. Yeah. How many people found us on, probably through my spammy emails or invitations? Yeah, thanks, Peter. We're also on Facebook, so this is being recorded, so you can find this and probably a couple hundred more topics that we've recorded over the years on our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Facebook and hear announcements. In addition to that, you'll get discounted passes to conferences, free conference passes, etc. we give away. And on Twitter, if you like to tweet, MomoSB, appreciate Holland there on MomoSB. And here to welcome you, I just want to talk about, give a round of applause to Wipro for supporting us and blessing us here tonight. And then we'll get two welcomes from the team here. So, Amar? Yeah, Amar. Come up and tell us a little about. Tell us a little bit.
Thanks, Mark. So, welcome to all of you. You might be wondering, what are you doing here in Wipro for an event like this? Surprisingly, we actually do a lot of work with startups. And one of the areas where we thought we can add a lot of value for today's evening is really on the subject of how can we help companies like you scale up as you go to the market. We do that in three ways with companies like yourselves across the United States and a few other geographies. First, we have a specific vehicle of business operations inside Wipro that we call simply as New Age Business. This is really a vehicle to look for those companies which fill white spaces in offerings that we cannot offer to our customers. But these are long-standing customers for us around the world. And we work with about 1,200 large Global 2000 corporations around the world. So for example, large pharmaceutical major was looking for a pharmacovigilance company for molecular drug discovery, and this is a fairly unique space, but we found a company like this that would partner with us in New York and Boston, and we went and partnered with them to bring that benefit to our clients. We run a fairly strong pharmaceutical and healthcare practice, for example. So we do work on 23 different industry verticals. There is a good chance that anything that you do out there could potentially fit in any one of our industry verticals / horizontal technology offerings. The second way in which we go to the market is with our vehicle, what we call as Wipro Ventures. And I'll have my colleague Biplab come in and talk about it in a minute. But Wipro Ventures, the story about Wipro Ventures is very simple. We look for those companies which are still in a fairly early stage but have an exclusive offering in the B2B space, not B2C, that fit into one of our big bet themes. And Volker will talk about what those big bets are for us in terms of where we are looking for thematic investments to make into companies such as yourselves. And that's the second vehicle. The third vehicle that we have is really the reason why you are in this particular company and this particular setup here. What you have here is a proto lab. We prototype a lot of new offerings with startups to build showcases that we can showcase to our customers. So this is a real estate that people like you, developers like you come in and use here, work with us on real projects for real paying customers. And after this is what we have is a 20,000 square foot Silicon Valley Innovation Center. It's a full-blown theatrical production of multiple different use cases that we build in a slightly Hollywood style orchestration and showcase it in a powerful storytelling mode. And we have partnered with about 20 startups to tell that story. So and typically we host at least one CXO, a CTO, CDO, CTO in our campus every day. Just 2 hours before, this office was buzzing with a fairly large visit from a private equity company. They were coming here to see how they can host about 40 of their companies to come in and see what solutions we have. We have around blockchain, around AR, VR, around data science, around our AI platform that we call as Homes. We have multiple use cases around, again, about 20 to 23 different industries. So those are different vehicles in which you can look at Wipro in terms of how we partner with startups, with emerging companies, and sometimes we use this phrase called scale-ups, which is really companies which are scaling but do not have that access or don't know how to access, etc. So with that, I'll kind of pause here. Again, my name is Amar. I'm based out of this office. I run part of our US operations here. I've been here for almost 16 years. I set up our Wipro office first in Mountain View in a different location. And once we got kicked out of Google because of real estate issues, then we came over here and we found this to be a better office for us. With that, I'll introduce you to Biplab. He is a co-leader for our Wipro Ventures team that is headquartered out of this office. They invest in companies and he will tell you a few success stories in terms of how we have gone about doing it. And after that, we'll have our panel set up. The reason why we chose this panel topic today is very interesting. We work with a number of companies who have fantastic technologies and very motivated people and absolutely top fantastic talent that even we would like to go and hire for ourselves. But the issue that I think we face again and again and again is either a lack of sophistication or a lack of appreciation in terms of what it takes to build a completely enabled sales organization. It's a lot of investment, it's a lot of effort. Part of it can be done by yourselves, part of it can be done by working with other companies in the ecosystem. We need you as much as you need companies like us. So there's a little bit of a hunger on our part as well, and that's one of the reasons why we're doing this event. We go around looking, discovering for companies like you to come and partner with us in order to make our clients successful. So with that, I'll have Biplab come over. There are still a number of seats here that are available. The session will go until about 7:30. So if you guys want to find a chair here, please come over here or don't be shy and take one of the seats and occupy here. With that, Biplab, why don't you come over? Thank you again.
Hi, as Amar mentioned, I'm Adyen, one of the managing partners of Wipro Ventures. Wipro Ventures is the corporate investment arm of Wipro. We were established in 2015 to invest in early to mid-stage enterprise software companies that fill a strategic white space for Wipro's businesses. And the way the subject for today is very near and dear to me and our group, because what we try to do is we look at the white spaces, identify the right partner to invest in, and go very deep in terms of taking their solution to market to our enterprise customers. So part of the value that we bring to the companies in our portfolio is enterprise logos, the capability to have them work with us and serve their solutions up to our customers, such that it's a win-win for our customers, for us, and of course for the portfolio companies. Between 2015 and now, which is 4 years that we have been around, we have invested in about 14 companies across the enterprise stack. Our domain is across the enterprise stack. That's where Wipro plays from, say, cyber security to data infrastructure to cloud infrastructure, SaaS applications, industrial IoT, that whole gamut. One of the, and we have, if you during your course of the meetings here, in all our portfolio companies, the logos and listed on that wall just behind where the food is served. So please go take a look around. Most recently, one of our cybersecurity portfolio company, Demisto, got acquired by Palo Alto Networks, and we kind of helped them a lot during their journey of when we participated in the Series A till their acquisition. So that's kind of what we have been able to accomplish, and hopefully we'll have a chance to work with some of you in this group. So with that, thank you, and Deepam.
So before we start, I want to also acknowledge the team. Events like this take a lot of effort to pull together. There's a team of people who deserve special mention, and also I want to point them out so that in case any of you missed out on talking to somebody, you have burning questions you could not connect with, these are the folks you can reach out to on your way out, and we will make sure we will try to connect you with those folks, whether those folks are in the audience who you don't need to connect with them, or in the panel. So if I can, Vinayak, can you please raise your hand? So Vinayak over there. Nikhil is somewhere as well. Stand up if you don't mind. And Radhika. And she's probably outside managing the guests who are still coming. So folks feel free to talk to her, talk to these folks if you have any questions. So let's get started. Before we start with the panel, may I request all the panelists to spend about 45 seconds to introduce themselves, not minutes, and maybe a little bit about what's so exciting. By the way, these companies are really doing amazing stuff. I don't need to introduce the companies, but what's really exciting is to see the stories behind the companies and what's made them so successful. So please touch upon a bit about what you guys are doing in the company, and maybe Wilson, I can start with you.
Sure, happy to. Thanks everybody for coming. My name is Wilson Farrar. My nickname is Win. Does anyone want to guess why? I like to win. So I've co-founded and sold a couple of companies. I'm a Boston native. I moved out to Silicon Valley close to 25 years ago because it was the place to start companies. And it's just sort of in my DNA. So I've worked with Fortune 500 and startup companies on innovation, on automation, and now I'm with UIPath as the director of strategic partnerships in the enterprise. And we are the fastest growing enterprise software company ever, which is pretty amazing. There's going to be an announcement tomorrow on another raise that we just made. And our valuation is about $7 billion. So it's pretty exciting, and I just have a question for you. How many of you guys are having fun? Okay, cool, because it's so much about having fun, so that's great. Let's have fun tonight.
So I'm John Craig. I have a long enterprise technology background, so I started off being on the IT side, and I was a CIO for a major, at the time it was in the Fortune 100. I think it's still in the Fortune 500, a German multinational called ThyssenKrupp in Asia Pacific. Then worked for McKinsey & Company for about 4 or 5 years, helped establish their McKinsey digital function. There went into the startup myself in CPG, coconut water, and then sold that successfully along with some of the other founders, and lately I work for Dropbox, which basically I head up their alliances and services function, which is partnering with companies like Wipro to kind of drive business sales from the enterprise, but also with a much smaller size to drive sales to lower tier market.
Thanks. Good evening, everybody. My name is Sharath. I'm from Mesosphere, manager studies and partnerships for Mesosphere. In one line, Mesosphere is like this awesome company which makes insanely easy to adopt, operate, and scale any of the cloud native technologies. So you can go in details. I'm here. So I'm happy to be here, but one good nostalgia that I would like to mention was I started partnering with Wipro about 18 years ago when Wipro was my partner at Oracle. So the journey has been long, great partnership with Wipro with different companies, big and small, that I've represented.
My name is Volker. I work for Adyen. I've been with Adyen since 8 years. I joined the company when we were 30 people. We are now 1,000 people. We did an IPO last summer at a valuation of 20 billion. I've seen the company grow from what I would consider a startup to now to be a publicly listed company. I'm here to share my experience with you guys on what it takes to build a solid sales organization.
So wow, what an amazing group of people. So I want to first, before we start, I want to get a show of hands from the audiences so that we can tailor our questions and the conversation based on that. Can you just, by show of hands, how many of you are entrepreneurs and have a startup that you're working in right now? Okay, great. Get your hands down. And how many of you have raised at least one round of financing? What stage? So there's quite a few. Again, by show of hands, how many of you have sold into enterprises or are interested in selling in enterprises? I think it's a good mix of some early stage folks who are looking to raise funds, some who have raised financing, and many who are looking to sell into the enterprise. I think this is a particularly amazing group of people to hear from, because not only have they sold, but they've blown their way into enterprises. I think we have a very interesting set of perspectives. So maybe let's start with just that. I think I have been, before joining Wipro, I've also had my journey through startups, and I've been an entrepreneur and also ran a small venture fund. And the first sale, the first big sale is always the big thrill. And I want to see if the audience, our panelists can share with our audience what was their first big win, and what was that, if you can remember a bit of context and how it happened, because the journey changes sort of before and after. Maybe Volker, if you want to start with that.
Yeah, sure. Well, for us it was, being a startup in payments, you do target like-minded companies that know about payments, that want to scale fast, and that basically talk the same language. For us it was back then a customer called CityDeal, which was based in Berlin. So we were operating from Amsterdam, that merchant was in Berlin, CityDeal. CityDeal was later bought by Groupon, and that's where it all started. For us that turned out to be the first ice hockey stick sale, let's say. That's Groupon before they went public, and that was almost 9 years ago. They started that global expansion, and they basically asked us, because they trusted us with the technology and the knowledge that we had in payments, to help them in their global expansion, basically building up a network of banks, payment methods, risk functions for them globally.
That's very helpful. If you can also touch, maybe other panelists can also touch what helped in that sale, because I felt, at least in my experience, it's like a big step change, selling into a larger, selling a large deal or selling into a large enterprise. So what was it that landed you that first? If you can talk about that, you remember that far back.
I think there's many things I could point out, but the one thing that is the essential part of any sale is trust. If you don't have trust, there's no sale. How do you establish trust? Well, there's several ways to do that, but mostly it's understanding, listening to the merchant, really like digesting what they want, and then actually have a meaningful conversation with them rather than a one-way sales pitch.
Sharath,
Yeah, I wasn't there when the first major sale happened, but this is the story that I gathered from my founders. So we had an enterprise technology by the day one, right? Because when this technology was built, the idea was formulated in UC Berkeley, and then the founders were themselves engineers at Google and Twitter. So they kind of built this idea and made them as their first proof of concept customers. And then the journey is been great in terms of selling to enterprises. So the largest customer that we have is actually the largest bank of US. And being a startup, right, it's not easy to go and sell something new, emerging, when it is not proven out, and especially when it is built on open source. So I think one of the strategies that Mesosphere adopted was to kind of identify special project groups, because if you talk to a typical application guy or an IT infrastructure guy, so they're all running their own keep the lights on type of engagements, right? They're not innovating, but they are facilitators of any innovation that comes into a company. So I think the strategy that Mesosphere adopted was to kind of go after the special group. In our case, it was data scientists. I mean, we're trying to build in some AI, ML type of use cases. They wanted a platform that could easily get them to market faster without relying on their infrastructure applications team, which would typically take months to provision any infrastructure. So I think that's what really worked for Mesosphere. We continue to operate that way, but it is important to kind of understand that when you are in new emerging technology, you will not be called out specifically in any large RFIs or RFPs, right? Because you're still unknown, but eventually you'll get there where your company or your specific technology will be called out. But till then, I think identifying the right groups of special projects, we always put that word special projects in our sales teams. Go identify those special projects, those data scientists or teams that are trying to build the cloud-native technologies, and then we start the journey there.
So for me, my Dropbox's experience is a little bit different than the others. And we started as a consumer company. So one of the first kind of cloud consumer companies back in 2007. And it was a very kind of gradual, like we experienced explosive growth, and we're always kind of being pulled higher than our weight. So as soon as we released the consumer product, we probably within a year or two noticed that, hey, some businesses are starting to use Dropbox to exchange files, the free version, paid version. So our kind of observation was, hey, we should start trying to, there's more potential here. And it becomes a discussion of like, well, how are you going to spend the next kind of, mental time and effort and resources building out an even better consumer sales organization, or do you start targeting small business, etc. So we had a lot of kind of interesting discussions around how to develop that up. So that's the context for kind of growth. Eventually, though, we did reach the point where we decided, hey, enterprise is something we really want to seriously go after. So the first, even though we've been selling to a lot of enterprises probably for several years, the biggest sort of formal sale was in the media space. And the global media companies really like Dropbox a lot because they deal with a lot of large files, many different formats, different companies, etc. So, but this company wanted to kind of basically standardize it and then take a lot of their kind of organic usage and then convert that into a much more sort of professional sort of setup that also included API integrations, etc. And it was a big decision for us to kind of like say, hey, we're ready for this, we're going to start going after it. And we did most of that internally. So one of the biggest challenges that we noticed there immediately was that after we kind of had sold this successfully, got a happy customer, is how do you scale that? Because especially for a company that's used to very scalable, automated kind of deployments and just, hey, build it and they will come. This is now, hey, you can build it and you can achieve something amazing, but it takes a lot of services. So that was one of that big sale initially. That was just, it happened shortly after I joined. I led to a much more broader discussion internally about how do we scale this and kind of establishing a services partner program. Where we can say, hey, we'll sell the technology, but we also want to partner with companies that can kind of integrate it together with a broader thing so we can replicate this kind of big success across the areas. So that was one of the biggest challenges was, convincing the internal company to, hey, the customer wants this, we can deliver it, but then, going into it knowing, hey, the first time it's not going to be scalable, and then trying to figure out, right, after we invested that, how do we then kind of expand that out? That was
Getting ready for the big scale.
How many of you have heard of RPA? Oh, a lot of you, okay. Well, 4 or 5 years ago, nobody had heard of RPA. And 4 or 5 years before that, our CEO, Dan Medina, was sitting with another guy in a 2-room apartment in Romania, twiddling away, realized that he had created something cool, and went out and tried to sell it. And part of being able to sell something is knowing what it is that you're selling, what the value is that you're selling. And you guys, it sounds like some of you have done phase 1 in your funding. How many of you are trying to raise funds now? Just some of you, okay. It took Daniel a long time to get the first deal. The first deal was to a bank in London that finally called him and said, hey, I think we figured out what you're trying to do. You're automating processes. So we're doing robotic process automation. That was the hardest deal to get. So one thing to remember is that your first deal is going to be the hardest and it's going to take the longest. And I say that because it's hard to get your first deal and you're sitting there going, well, how come the person getting the deal can't get the deal done? It takes a while, and you need to help the person get the deal done. So you want to leverage a couple of things. First of all, you want to leverage your network. So anyone that you know that might know someone to get into an account, you want to leverage that person getting into the account. Second of all, you want to build trust, as Volker was saying, and part of that is understanding the problem that you're solving with your customer. And then once you know the problem you're solving, then it's sort of scaling. but it's building credibility in the industry and building awareness. So those two things, credibility and awareness, you want to keep in mind when you're building that enterprise sales.
So, yeah, it's really interesting, the variety of comments. I think it sounds very simple, but knowing what you're selling and probably creating a value proposition, especially if a disruptive company, the world doesn't quite have the eyes to see it the same way you do. So finding a way to communicate. And then I think I want to pick up what you said about trust. And trust is something that you almost feel, of course, most entrepreneurs understand by virtue of doing it, but it's one of those things that sometimes gets relegated to the bottom of the list of things that needs to be done on an everyday basis when you draw your daily schedule. So maybe start with that, just because I think, in fact, even before that we were discussing, we were thinking how important is the philosophy, the operating philosophy of the company, and how important is the culture that you set up in the business from day one, and to what extent does that play a role in building your relationship with customers, especially those who don't know you from before? Yes, Sharath.
Before we get on to this topic, right? So I think like a sales guy, but there's one tactical approach you can take when you're selling to an enterprise. Most CIOs are carving out a tiny portion of their budget to spend on something new technology, emerging technology. I think find out those kind of sponsors, and if you can sell a new idea and concept, the money is yours. And then if you're based on how successful or how happy you make the customer, you can grow from there.
And I'll back that up. Actually, the truth, it's a very interesting comment. We are seeing a lot of large enterprises who are creating roles for chief innovation officers. I'm sure many of you have, or chief digital officers. And many of these folks have budgets just set aside for new trials and tests. And they're actually asking us, there are of course lots of other challenges, and how do you get inside an enterprise and get to talk to the decision makers, which we'll talk through the course of the rest of this discussion. But it's a very good point. So if I can go back to the question I was asking about company culture and the role it plays in helping you forget and keep your customers and possibly develop a reputation. Volker, can you speak? And I'm also reminded of several companies who have these internal stories and ways they do things. If there's something funny or something interesting you do which helps build that culture and spread that would be really interesting to hear as well.
Well, the funny thing would be, we are an Amsterdam-based company, which makes us a Dutch company, and Dutch people have a reputation of talking rude sometimes. And the funny thing is, it is in our formula, so we have basically 7 formula points, and this is a reflection on how we work as a company, or not how we want to work as a company. And that formula basically came down to where we were growing over the years and been profitable since 2011. Growth was coming in, and at one point we asked ourselves, what is the secret? Why are we so successful? It might be a little bit of an arrogant question, but we were really asking ourselves that. And so we asked consultants to come in and help us, sales trainers, etc. It was all like blah, blah, blah. Like we didn't understand what they wanted to tell us, why we're successful. So basically we took some offsite, or the management took offsite, where they really thought about pointing down the way we work, and that essentially became part of the work culture, which was not something new, but this becomes really important when you then actually scale up and you hire new people, is where they know what the formula is and they better check whether they could be fitting in. So the funny thing was, to end that, one formula point is we talk straight without being rude, and that is basically what it is. So we have a lot of enterprise customers asking us to do X, to build something, or to do that, and we would then just explain them why that doesn't make any sense. In not a rude way, in a factual way. You need to be straight.
I think that's a huge point. I remember when we were starting my first company, and there were like 5 of us, and we were going to enterprise companies. Cisco was the first deal we did, and they would ask us, well, how many employees do you have? And I sort of said to the head of engineering, like, oh, what are we going to say when they ask that question? He goes, tell them how many we have. So we'd say, we have 5 people. And they'd go, 5 people? I said, yeah, you're going to get all our attention. You are going to be so important to us that when you call us at midnight, and we call midnight networks, by the way, we will answer the phone. And we did. People used to call us at midnight, but that's...
And that exactly builds trust. If
yeah.
you're just straight and just
yeah.
honest without being rude.
Yeah, right. Be honest without being rude. That's a good tenet. But you know, at UIPath, Daniel Dines talks about being humble, being bold and being humble. But that sense of, you know, even though you're going to save the world or do something amazing, you have to have humility about it. And what that's led to is that this culture of everybody helps each other, everybody appreciates each other. It's like a family. Like I feel like I've got 1,000 new friends now. It's really an amazing feeling. And so we do things at UiPath, like we have free downloads of our software. If anybody wants to try RPA, you can go down to uipath.com and you can try our software for free. We also have free training. These are things that you need funding, obviously, to do. It's helpful if you have funding, but it's just a nice thing to do to say, we care about you as our customer, we care about you as our partner, we want to make, you know, life easier for you, so we're welcoming you into our life by doing these things. So that's a key tenet there. But guiding principles are just critical. Do you want to be a place that allows dogs at work? That's cool. We have unlimited vacation time at UiPath. It doesn't mean we take it, but or I don't take it, but maybe next week. But at least you have that sense of caring, which is important as a culture.
Actually, Dropbox has a similar unlimited vacation, but I strongly suspect it results in people taking less vacation. But which is a great move. So but I think at Dropbox, like, culture was also a very important thing from the early days. I think there's every company establishes its own culture, but what was successful at Dropbox, I think, was setting some fairly ambitious, like one of the principles is aim higher and sweat the details, which are very much about kind of being aspirational and that sort of thing, but then there's a whole bunch of stuff around openness and inclusiveness. So Dropbox recently has been awarded like several, recognized at least as being a very friendly place to work. So like awarded one of the best companies to work at, period, and then definitely the number one place to work at if you're LGBTQ person, that sort of thing.
Be yourself.
Yeah, be yourself. So very much
Whatever
be
that
yourself.
is.
Yeah, whatever that is, and sort of open and inclusive that way. And then there's a final kind of, there's 7 principles, and the 7th principle is actually not a sentence or anything, it's actually a picture of a cupcake, which means that, you know, whatever you're doing, make sure that you're having fun. Right, so to make sure that like, don't go, you know, so into, oh, we're going to try to make so much more money, we're going to try to make this amazing thing. Like, yes, we're going to do that, but we also have to make sure everyone's included and everyone's having fun. I think that's something you can really build. People get behind that more than just the concept of making money.
And I think,
The cupcake philosophy. Sorry, go ahead.
I guess, I mean, we have the same with making fun, but we are always very, very specific, and that doesn't mean that people should go out drinking all day. But for us, it means we truly enjoy what we're doing, and we truly enjoy helping our merchant, thinking with and developing stuff. That's what we mean with fun, but it's an essential one, and you should actually name it too and mention it repeatedly. Once you have people that don't like what they do, you create a different atmosphere.
Sharath, so if you also can add, how do you add, if you do anything specific to bring this into new employees that you're bringing in, how does it get institutionalized? I think Volker also touched upon a little bit, if you have some practices, how do you?
Sure, I think the company that we are in, Mesosphere, the technology that we have built is fairly new. I mean, you know, think about containers, cloud native, all that was pretty new. I mean, I didn't even know what containers and cloud native were until the time I joined my company 2.5 years ago. So I think, which is mostly with all of our employees. So I think the founders adopted a very nice and unique strategy of telling the story first, right? Why they built it, where did they solve this problem, and how can they help? Together, how can we help together as a company to solve problems to many other customers? Like my founders were from Twitter and Uber. This idea came about, trying to make their own jobs easier first, and then the startup idea came. So I think that part of storytelling in terms of letting the employees know whichever background they are. I think most of the people that we have in our company are from different background, not someone who's used to containers or cloud native technologies, but I think the reskilling them and making them understand how the enterprises are going to change, transform, by telling their own story about how they build the technology to make their lives easier, I think is part of our culture. Like, our founders make sure that every opportunity they get, they tell these stories to the new hires and kind of groom them as we go along. That's on the serious side, but on the fun side, I mean, we are a San Francisco-based company, so we also have to outdo the others in terms of the fun element. So our CEO is a DJ. He spins once in a while. We have freshly brewed beers every day. We are a dog-friendly company. And we were also voted as the best workplace in the United States for the fun part, for the fun element introduced in the company. So like I had a cousin of mine visiting from India, right, took him to office. He said, is this like a work, do you guys really work here or just hang out for fun? It's like, you're supposed to work here, but it's fun.
So thank you. It's a really interesting set of responses and comments. I think for a lot of folks in the audience who are still setting out, I think maybe this question of setting a culture may seem like a little bit of a distant thing with a lot more priorities. But what's very interesting is the direct connect with how your thinking is and how that impacts the customers, your customers. And I think you had an example from Volker saying that when you are direct with the customer, they probably treat you as a consultant, not just as a vendor. And is a differentiator automatically possibly from somebody else. And Wilson, your point about welcoming people in is almost like you set the rules on how this particular RPA industry game you want to, what bar you want to set for your competitors and others to rise up to. Many people might have disagreed, this is not the right approach possibly.
Yeah, they're copying us now. I just want to add one more thing in terms of culture. So a lot of people today talk about diversity and how important diversity is. And diversity is a nice thing and maybe it's even a nice word, but I really get back to why. Like, who cares if you're diverse or not? I really, I thought, hey, I wonder if they had me on the panel because I'm a woman. Like, I don't know, maybe. I never asked you. I'm smart too, and so maybe not. But yeah, that's fine. But maybe they had me here because there was like a nice balance and I might have a different perspective on things. So if you're going to be diverse, know why diversity matters. It's not so you can say, hey, we got 3 black guys and 2 Jewish guys and a gay guy. I mean, like, who cares? Maybe you want a gay person because you're going after that type of market, or they might have a different perspective on things. So know why. Like, I met with a woman from Visa recently, and she said they hire a lot of veterans, U.S. veterans, because the training that the veterans got makes them unique in terms of the skill sets that they bring. The women that they hire are mainly mothers because they have a different perspective on user interface than other people. So if you're going to be diverse, that's great, but know why.
Great, thanks. So maybe we'll move to a few more business aspects about planning scale in your planning your enterprise sales and how you scale your enterprise sales. So maybe let's talk about different dimensions about how do you plan to, when you're building a sales organization, you're trying to scale up in a structured manner, how do you grow your sales? One of the first things, at least in business school, people talk about is market segmentation, understanding the customers, understanding what specific each customer needs and trying to build what they specifically need in order to scale that. So in a startup's journey, when and if has market segmentation played a role so far, and where does it play a role? I would like to understand from a real practitioner's perspective, and because we see a lot of Silicon Valley type startups who are very horizontal software companies who probably sell to anybody who has that kind of a need, and they come to Adyen. So I'd love to hear from your experiences how useful that has been as a thinking in your organizations. So maybe we'll ask Sharath to take that first.
Sure. So you're still a Series D company. Again, I won't say we've mastered the art of market segmentation, geographies, and all that. We're still evolving as a company, but based on where we have been successful, right? So we were born out of Uber and Twitter, but then we were very successful in selling to the top 5 banks. So should that be a target segment for us? Or we're, top 7 telcos are our customers, so should telco be a segment for us that we need to work to? And Europe has been much more successful in a couple of these segments than US. So I guess we're still evolving, but I think market segmentation at some point when you're growing as a company is extremely important, and defining the use cases specific to that industry, right? I think that's what is helping us to win customers in a specific segment, and also understanding the language, right? How does a CIO of a telco think versus a CIO of a bank? And those are all necessarily not built into the technology because we are a horizontal platform. Whatever works in a telco works in healthcare, whatever. But I think the sales plays that you define, the use cases that you define, the way you train your sales and pre-sales team, I think makes a big impact in terms of how we can win each of these segments or markets, by selling uniquely and selling differently.
I think like market segmentation, Dropbox is an interesting perspective. So we started off with, we still have we're approaching 600 million users now, I think, on the platform. So you have a huge amount of segmentation data available. And one thing to be aware of is that only segment as much as makes sense given how much you're investing in Salesforce. This is particularly relevant to sort of business and enterprise sales, is that there's tons of data out there, right? And this probably, as time goes on, there's going to be even more data about how you can cut things and kind of analyze it down. But I think it's very important to keep in mind, practically, if you're only going to have 1 or 2 enterprise salespeople, the segmentation exercise is really just deciding where are you going to focus those 2 people, right? And how are you going to apply your resources? So I think you have to be careful not to get sucked down a rabbit hole of all the exciting, because most successful companies do care a lot about their customers and want to learn more about them. But you can definitely end up learning too much of the wrong stuff about your customers and lose focus on I've got this many resources, this much runway, and I gotta get some sales done. It's out too. So I think keeping the scientific side, but also keeping a very practical eye, what's the output of this segmentation?
So this gets back to the last point I made, which is know why you're doing something. I mean, know why. I see we have a lot of marketing events. Why are we having marketing events? We want to know why we're having this event. It's a great event. Know why you're segmenting the market. We spent a lot of time and a lot of money segmenting the market. We hired people all over the place. Said this guy's going to be this. Maybe the finance. That one's actually we're segmenting. This one's retail. Within a year, we had completely done away with it. And instead we went back to a regional model because you want to have people that can go in and build trust with your customers local in the region. Again, getting back to the trust credo. So if you're going to segment, know why. Now we're starting to segment a little bit, but because we have specific solutions that are geared towards a broad vertical.
Very interesting. You've gone both ways.
Yeah, exactly.
Volker, you had something to it?
Yeah, it's a super complex question, I guess. We never really did segmentation. We knew the industries that require a lot of technical knowledge. In our case, it's airlines that have super complicated systems, and we have a dedicated team for that because they really need to talk tech. It's not about selling. It's not even about consulting. It's really about understanding technically what they want. For the rest, for us, the beauty about our business is we process payments for businesses. Every business processes payments. The market is huge. We do know where we are good in or what the sweet spots are, like luxury retail. They're all moving into direct sales, into omni-channel, point of sale, customer journeys. That's why we have a great solution. We're great in mobility, subscription, recurring, digital, you name it. Our experience, and this is where also coming back to your comments about what we wanted to create in the sales force is that we all work together. Basically, our incentive, our commission plan is set up in a way that when 2 or more people work together on a deal and they close it, we actually pay out more commission. That is something that we should actually keep in mind. The worst you can have in your sales team is people fighting over accounts. So once you go down the road of segmenting and dividing up the market, you will get internal fights about who is doing what and not. And we decided to keep it completely open and to give the people the autonomy to do whatever they want, as in which customers to go after. Of course, we know which ones we want, otherwise we wouldn't have gotten the big ones. But when we start, okay, we have Netflix as a customer, let's go open to all these local markets where you have all the local video streaming customers. You go Facebook, what are the other local, Uber, local, etc. So it's you basically by doing this job for a while, you know where you want to go, but we decided not to go into a dedicated target list of accounts.
You trusted your employees to go after the ones that they could get into.
Yes, that's where the key is basically. That's where we do work globally, and that having that commission plan, that when 2 or more people work together on a deal, that we pay out more commission, that really helps. So there's also some accounts where we get an inbound lead that we give it to a person, but then we require that person to work with another one in, let's say, the headquarter that might have experience in that industry. That's how you make sure that whoever is working on an account actually gets the full support of the whole organization and is not on his own.
So I think just adding to that, right? So again, my personal view is market segmentations are not always based on industry domain knowledge or geographies and all that, right? Sometimes it's also triggered by market trends. I mean, just to give you an example, it happened to Mesosphere, like, we are built on a certain open source technology called as Mesos, and then this whole ecosystem which Google was trying to promote, Kubernetes. I mean, I guess you guys can just Google Kubernetes and there'll be like 50 companies out there doing something on Kubernetes. So this kind of, one announcement creates a trend and kind of screws up your whole segmentation, and you have to redefine yourself, you have to say who you are, and kind of see whether you're going with that ecosystem or either you're competing or you're complementing. I think the ability to segment the target market based on some new technologies or new company announcements is extremely important, especially in this fast-growing technology market, right? Like in our case, Google announced something in the morning, and by evening we had the responses ready to all of our top customers and partners. I think that the ability to act fast and act in rapid changing itself creates a different type of segment that you can go after.
So these are all really interesting points. One thing I wanted to get out of this question, which actually is coming out very clearly, even companies of your scale, companies who have been IPOs, valued at multi-billion dollars and still growing, some of the best of the world companies, segmentation is not really copybook. It means a lot of different things. And there is geographical focus, which is, I guess, a lot to do with building trust and building relationships, as well as ability to trust people, their own judgment and how. And that's something we see in Wipro as well. A lot of the startups who come to work with us, the first thing they need, and I would probably say even the ventures team would probably back us up on that, it's not really the financial support as much as they need helping build trust and connect with the company. So I feel getting access to Wipro's customers, we've been working for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and that sort of creates a lot more interest for them to seek out relationships. So that's really helpful.
It's about the team. The first thing you need is a team of people. Teams, companies with more than one founder are more likely to succeed. So choose people that you like to work with, that you trust, that you can work things out with.
So let me build on that. I think in terms of team, let me sort of expand that question in terms of your extended sales teams. And when you, as you're scaling your organization, at some point, obviously, early on, you're starting to do a lot of the sales directly. Your founders and then your first round of employees, everybody's selling effectively in a startup. But at some point, you want to get the scale flip. You want the ecosystem to be doing more selling for you. In Dropbox's case, it's probably the consumer business. I'm not referring to that. Look at the enterprise side of the business more, where you want maybe some other ecosystem partners, could be channel partners or what have you, doing sales. So if you can comment about direct selling versus channel selling. So it's two parts. One, in your journey, when did that become important? Thinking about moving from direct selling model to a channel-led selling model. And again, from your experience, what type of channel partners did you seek out? What have worked out for you? And even those who have not worked out for you, just broadly, this is probably a rich, broad question, so maybe everybody has different perspectives. Maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah. So at UIPath, first of all, RPA, AI, machine learning is such a hot industry that we just had partners coming up to us almost immediately. It was like drinking out of a fire hose. I mean, it's just been an impossibility to manage them all. It's been really difficult. We decided that because we had such incredible growth targets, we wouldn't try to do it alone. We would do it with a partner. So we welcomed that deluge of partners coming in. We set up processes to manage them. There are different sizes of partners, different types of partners. We could get into that all day. Wipro is a great partner to us. This is why we're here today. So after this deluge of all these partners coming in, we then said, hey, wait a minute. Maybe it's not necessarily the ones that are beating down our doors every day, but the ones that we need to go out and say, hey, we want to cultivate this relationship with you because we recognize that you have industry presence and you have industry reputation and you have smart people. So now we're sort of shifting and we're saying, we love the partners that came to us, but we're saying what really makes a great partner. So that's why I'm here tonight supporting Wipro, because they're a great partner to us, and we're going to do more and more with them, right? Wipro?
Thank you, absolutely, thank you. But when you say multiple types of partners, can you add to what kinds of partnerships are of most value to you at this stage of your organization? This is an open question for everybody.
So for us, it was probably our latest types of partners were just simple resellers. So following the kind of like, fully automated consumer product, and then a fully automated business product, one of the first kind of openings on our website or portal was an option for people to sign up to be resellers of Dropbox. And that immediately gave us some additional reach and allowed people to, we were fortunate that we had a consumer-based product that could be transacted fairly easily at the early stages. But as we've grown in sophistication, to add more features, recently acquired HelloSign as an e-signature product, we're finding more and more need to be packaged together with other things. So we have a very open product, offers a lot of integrations. We tend to believe that the market overall is moving towards more open products and less sort of closed stacks. So we want to kind of promote that. So hence the technology partners are important to get that. Services partners who can help customers implement and support them in their journeys are important. As well as kind of the what I call kind of reseller or procurement partners that help you with sometimes complex financial transactions that are necessary to basically get payment done.
Thank you. Sharath, your experience?
I guess from Mesosphere standpoint, I think our partnership, initially was kind of sealed with our investors themselves, which is Microsoft and HPE. They definitely provided the scale to us, but not necessarily the ability to have a conversation with the end customers, right, in a more strategic way. So there, I think the company felt the need of working with global system integrators, and that's why I'm here today, working with Wipro to kind of have that conversations at the enterprises. And also, we work with the public cloud companies like Amazon and Azure, plus a set of, complementing independent software vendors who kind of come into this whole mix and make all of these great technologies come together and run it and, run it anywhere on public infrastructure or private infrastructure. Again, just to summarize, I think partnerships are very essential. As we scale, I think Series C, the company realized that the next level of growth for the company, for our company, will only come from partnerships. Whether you work with a technology partner like the HPs and Dells of the world, or you work with a GSI, both I think bring equal and greater value in terms of how you build conversations, whether with a technology partner or for a GSI. At the end, I think you need all of these guys to kind of win this multi-year, multi-million type of contracts because they have a good understanding of the customer environment. They have been working with the customers for years, so they know better than what we can assess ourselves through our sales and pre-sales team.
I can add, I'll add something. You want to say anything about that?
Well, again, it depends. Of course, every partner is important. Us, in our case, we made the decision not to rely on partners to do our selling. I think we need to be very clear on that. Of course, we have partners everywhere, MasterCard, banks, payment methods, point-of-sale terminal providers, etc. There's so many partners that we're working with. And what we do is create awareness and explain what we do, but we would not proactively offer incentives to sell our services. We tried it at the beginning, and the experience was always like the merchant would come to us saying that, well, you promised that, you have that, we don't have it. It always ended up in a big drama. So we decided to have it all in-house with the rest of our services. Having said that, Wipro, of course, plays an important role in advising customers on their specific needs, and you guys need to be aware of what's out there and what is happening. But we always trust our partners to see us as the company that will actually help you guys to sell to your merchant. So the way we see partnerships is that we enable their sales force to sell their own services better.
Yeah, thanks. I wanted to add one thing. Okay. Can anyone guess the two words that I'm going to say about partnerships? No, why. It's the same thing, no why. If you're going to partner, we had partnered because we were going to be rapid growth, so we did resellers, we did implementation partners, we did all kinds of partners. But if your goal, if you're sitting out there thinking, I want to build a company and I want to sell it in 3 years, You may not want any partners, because you may just want to, have Wipro can back you, right? They can invest in you, they can help you to start with, but you can just go out, get your first 10 enterprise customers, and then sell the company for 50 million, 100 million, maybe 400 million. That's not a bad way to go. So just know why. If you're going to go through the partner channel, know why you're doing
Yeah,
it.
so I guess also know why directly relates to what type of company and product you have, which is probably being reflecting in all the responses. So like in Volker's case, I guess the product is designed so simply to integrate that maybe there's not a lot of systems integration support is required. On the other hand, maybe Mesosphere, the ecosystem is very sophisticated in a cloud infrastructure. You have to make these tools work with many other equally complex pieces of technology like Kubernetes, just to pick another word.
Yeah, I think I can take a nice piece of technology and go and be a CIO of an enterprise company, but then what runs below and above is something that a partner will know, right? Because I'm not privy to those details. I don't know what infrastructure they're running, what legacy applications they're running. I think this type of information or this type of integrations can happen only when you work with an established vendor or a partner in the market. Right? I think that's the biggest value. And sometimes it is as simple as even your contracting process, right? I've worked with some of the partners where I may have sold the technology to the customer, but could not actually transact, simply because for a startup to build contracts with an enterprise company to take months. So work with your big partners. Work with partners like Wipro who have the customer's trust for decades and who can make all of these things very simple and easy way to build business with the customer.
I think just the final thing to note too, that we found that with that trend of like open sort of systems and not buying everything with one stack, it's an increasing trend I've observed at least, and talking to other friends in my circle, is that people come to companies come to companies like Wipro with a problem, not saying what the solution should be, right? And the solution often involves more than one technology, and people generally don't want to do it. I think payments is probably an exception, where it's such a key part of it that the merchant or the core company will actually want to say, hey, we want to use this technology or that technology. But in a lot of cases, the actual choice of technology comes out in the mix. It's more like we issue an RFP to 3 different SIs who then recommend a mix of different products to solve it without really kind of forcing the issue on any one technology. So being part of that, like having a partner ecosystem that can help influence much more sophisticated decisions that you have a difficulty being viewed as a neutral arbiter or as to why you should be part of that package. I think having a partner helps that a lot.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to add it to back to solving a problem. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs who come up with these great ideas, and they're really exciting stuff, but you got to figure out what you can do with it. It's like rocket fuel's cool, but if you know that you can send a rocket into space and reach another planet, like that's really cool, right? So figure out what you can do with your own rocket fuel and build a story around it so that you can explain it to people. That's a really good way to get your customers and investors.
Great. So let me just ask the audience, given the time, I have more questions, but I want to see if folks in the audience have any questions. We'd like to take a few of them, and then we'll continue with some of the other questions I have. Anyone in the audience?
Yeah.
Please can you state briefly your name and what
and ask a question in the next section.
Yeah, hi, my name is Sachin. I'm a founder of an RPA startup machine. And one question I have is I'm developing right now for our startup as we're launching the kind of social and community aspect of things. I haven't heard you guys talk much about what you've done to leverage community and social. So I'd love to hear about that.
Anybody want to take that?
Yeah, our founders are like, very young guys, right? So obviously their social media strategy around promoting the company is pretty active. I think the company, what I've heard from my founders is the company initially started, reaching out to customers when they were still like in the angel round or early stages, was through social media. So they kept telling some stories and experiences which kind of created that interest within the community because we're an open source, built on open source, and the community started, feeding a lot of data, a lot of leads or opportunities that can be explored further by the early stage company that we were in. So I think in a nutshell, social media really helped our company at the initial stages and continues to do so. Like we have a separate social media marketing team, a bunch of about 3-4 very energetic people who continue to drive our messages into the market through various social media platforms.
Yeah, we do a lot around community, and we build community at all different levels. So you want to reach out to developers that are developing, you want to reach out to CFOs that are making big decisions around their organization. So we do it through a lot of events. But if you're going to have an event, know who you're targeting, why you're having the event, what your goal is that you look at it. We do a lot on social media too. Social media is very big for us. And hey, I want to talk to you afterwards about your everything.
Yeah, and actually, we've seen, Wipro has, for example, acquired a company called Topcoder, which is a crowdsourced platform. It's interesting that we're seeing several startups using, this is a crowd of developers, designers, and data scientists, where if you want to get your product more visible, and many times we've seen the developers are the ones who are bringing new technologies into enterprises. We've seen a lot of CTOs and CIOs going by the recommendation of what the developers are used to using, especially the open source community, like Sharath was talking about, has been built around this kind of movement. So we've seen crowdsource as another very interesting way of getting sales, which is sort of a different way of looking at the social media.
And use your partners to build community. Have events with your partners.
It seems like some of you guys have built sales organizations a few times. And I guess my question as someone who's going to be building out mine for the first time is, what have you seen as kind of the ideal nimble setup, number of SDRs, AEs, things like that to pre-sales engineers, et cetera, to kind of optimize for that initial go-to-market for your first outbound reaching customers versus inbound leads.
What kind of product do you have? What service do you have?
We're identity and access management, and we can use in pockets, but those have actually been our inbounds until now. So we've gotten inbound to big corporations, but to really, scale, we've got to be a cross-organization tool, and that you end up needing to sell in normal enterprise.
Do you have a sales force?
Sorry?
Do you have a sales force?
Currently, no. We're just in the process of building
Yeah,
it.
right there.
Hire the next CEO as the first salesperson.
Yeah, I think that's, there isn't like Deepam already kind of illustrated about like what product are you selling, and how much effort does it take to sell it. So I think having some understanding of that, sounds like you personally have gone through the sales process a couple times. So I think kind of assessing that and determining like, assume somebody who's not quite as good as you or doesn't know the product as well, and start kind of assessing like what's the kind of load you want for that, and then map it to your growth. So one of the big challenges, I think, of hiring salespeople early stage, and we saw that as a microcosm at Dropbox, right? We didn't have any salespeople, and we just had this automated machine, and then we started adding people on top of it to go for that. Was really kind of assess like what is a reasonable target for these people, based on my own experience, etc., and set them up for success early on. Because even really good salespeople, when they just come in and they don't know the product, they need some time to learn and get into the groove of things. And similar, like everything is usually based around the salesperson themselves, and the rest are viewed as kind of support functions. One exception which we make it a good bit is customer success, which is like how you maintain your existing customers once you have them. And there's some sort of customer success excellence piece around that, but generally key around how many salespeople, what's a reasonable target, and then kind of build the support infrastructure around that. And putting some real thought into that is good, rather than a lot of startups I've seen like hire a salesperson and they get angry at them 3 months later when they haven't produced magic, basically.
I guess if you're just getting started with your whole sales momentum, I would definitely recommend that you hire a bunch of energetic SDRs or inside sales teams and build campaigns that, where you at least let the market know that there is a solution, or a company like yours will try to solve some problems, right? I think that's when you can build a sales pipeline. And then I think then comes the step of hiring enterprise executives, because enterprise industry experienced enterprise executives, you get a guy of 20-year-old experience and then ask him to sell something new. And my experience is he's not he's not fine-tuned to sell something which is very new and which has to be built through a conversation. Your SDRs are a channel to build a newer conversation because they don't have legacy. They just come with very fresh mind and throwing out anything new, our own campaigns, and then you get your, big 500K types of sales guys to actually go and build the sales volumes and then close enterprise deals.
Sorry, I have to interrupt, but forget about the SDRs. It's the salesperson's job to build his own pipeline and close it and follow the customer until it's a live customer. That's like a principal thing. I know here when I see all these SDRs basically working for the other salespersons, that creates a completely different atmosphere. Your first salespeople should actually be doing the sale themselves and guiding and doing the from A to Z, the whole boarding of the customer. For us, we don't have any SDRs. We tried it. We stopped it immediately because it created boring work for people that only do outreach and try to do a pitch without knowing the pitch. It's actually, sorry to be a little bit extensive here, but basically what I see a lot is that SDRs are usually the young graduates that you hire, but why would you trust them in actually approaching your customer first? It should actually be the experienced people and not the young people that do that, and actually also the ones that actually are able to not only close the deal. It's not about closing a deal, it's actually really helping and understanding the merchant and guiding through, and then do the negotiations, the legal stuff, the boarding. It's a very complex job. It's sometimes a little bit, I feel sales is a little bit underappreciated in many companies, where it's just like, you do that, it's like target, give it a target, if it doesn't target, get him out. We don't work with targets, we work with commissions, and the salesperson, they know when they do well and when they don't do well. It's not about telling them you should be doing that. No, we trust people to do their own job and be responsible for their own thing. That's where
building on that there too, I think he alluded to it, but apprenticeship is important. You're the first salesperson. The next salesperson is going to want to follow you around basically and figure out how to do the entire mechanism. And together you can kind of grow the organization that way. But I think, whether or not you have I think there is an SDR place in like my business, which is like vast outreach to hundreds of millions of people. Yes, you have to scale that, but I think when you can, when you're looking at enterprise sales, I think it's also a very important point. You don't want to put somebody who's fresh off, just hired, and put them in front of a VP at a company, because that's a way to destroy trust pretty quickly. So you have to be careful, like what are these people doing, and the first salesperson you hire should basically follow you around for a month or so to figure out what it is that you're doing.
Oh yeah, I have a lot to add, but I'll try to keep it concise. So the first thing is, whoever you hire to sell for your company, number one rule is make sure you like them. If you don't like them, I don't care what their pedigree is, I don't care how much they've sold, what they've done. If you don't like them, don't consider hiring them. You gotta like them. That's number one. Number two is you're gonna be your best salesperson to start. You're gonna know things that salesperson won't know, so build around that. And then just, you need to build upon your successes. But in terms of targeting, like if you said, hey, we're going to do $10 million in our first year, which, potentially, depending on what you're selling, it could be a big number or not. And then you do $8 million, you're like, oh, these guys did $8 million. If you said, we're going to do $5 million and you did $8 million, you'd be doing the wahoo dance. So I like that you don't have these targets and quotas. I think it's a good way. Salespeople know that if they kill it, they get to eat it, and if they don't, they don't. But and we could talk about selling models. The other thing is build a trusted advisory, or people, they don't have to be formalized, but just have a list of people that you go and you talk to and go, I got this idea, because we're going to give you different ideas here, and they're all valid and they're all good for the different situations that we've seen, but you've got to apply that to your situation, and again, know why. And by the way, that's not my mantra, know why, I just came up with that tonight, just use it practically. Know why, so that's pretty good.
All right, so, yes.
My name is Ras Siddiqui, and we don't have SaaS. We are hardware product team, and we were trying to sell to insurance agencies. And I consulted one person, and he advised me to hire a team and try to develop some material and things like that, exactly like what you have been talking. And the other person told me it's all nonsense. Just find a champion in the enterprise. You know, do you have $1 billion? I don't have. But then find a champion. That's the easiest way. And find a partner who has connections already. That's the only way a startup can do. That's why whatever you have said actually didn't connect to me, honestly.
So let me just say this one thing.
Yeah, so I want your opinion about the other person or this person or that person. What is that?
Yeah, well, so here's the thing. You have to figure out what you're selling to whom and how and what the message is. You know, what's the value? So to Volker's point earlier, you're solving a problem. At UIPath, we hired a bunch of like great enterprise sales guys that some are working out and some aren't. We invested a ton of money because we had the capital. So we just wanted to build this massive sales force. It may or may not be the best way to sell the product. Right, well that's good. See, sometimes not having money is a really good thing because you can't do stupid things with it, right? And then you have to dig yourself out of some big problem. You spent all this money to build this huge infrastructure of whatever your sales department is, and all of a sudden you're like, ooh, this isn't really how we're selling it. This isn't really how we're giving it to people. So know who you're selling to and how, what your sell is first. So for example, if you were selling cosmetics, I would say, go to Macy's and get them to sell it for you, or go to Nordstrom and get them to sell it for you. That's your partner. If you were selling, complex auto, infrastructure or something, I would say you need to talk to the auto industries. You got to know what you're selling to who and why. Robotics process automation, we're selling process automation. So there are a bunch of people within an organization we can sell to. Usually it's a C-suite because we're making big decisions. But
No, I was like what you said about the champion. You mean that he told you that you should be looking for a champion in the organization?
Yeah, he said that partners with some incubator or something like that, they have already connections. And find a champion. Don't waste money on hiring people and preparing documentation and the things, the money which we don't have. It's very...
So I mean, we always talk about finding a champion too.
Yeah, exactly. That's the role for the startup to take.
In that sense,
Yeah, in that sense, you're right. I think the gentleman's question there was probably about building a sales organization and sales team, which are slightly different stages.
Yeah,
So, yeah, maybe the lady over there.
Another question. My name is Kate. I don't work for a startup, but I would love to in pre-sales or sales if you're interested in hiring me. But my question is, how do you guys maintain a culture of innovation, a startup culture as leadership when your company starts to grow to a larger size?
first, can everybody give a round of applause to Kate, because that was gutsy to do that?
Well, I think it's a challenge. One of the is like it's kind of a given that the bigger you get, the harder it is to keep everyone going in the same direction. And one of the consequences of that tends to be innovation. But one of the best ways I've seen is like as you get bigger, and Dropbox does this fairly well, segment your own business and then give lower level managers autonomy, which means give them real resources they don't have to check every time they're using that. And give them some freedom, and also make sure there's generally we have a guideline like, hey, about 80% of your time should be your main job, and 20% of your time, like 1 day a week, is like, hey, you can do something else. Dropbox actually formalizes this with what we call Hack Week, which happens once a year. It's a big event where basically people clear out their calendars for a week and work on special projects just to try something different, and basically celebrate the people who come up with stuff. And some of these projects have turned into products. Both within Dropbox and outside of Dropbox. So it's proven to be a good, you basically have to spend time and not just like say, hey, we're going to be innovative, but you actually have to sacrifice like, hey, we're going to give people resources even though we know they're going to mess it up. And we're going to block, free people's time on the company's dime to actually do this type of work. So I think that's how you kind of do it. And that's not through sort of presentations or consultancy or that sort of thing. It's by actually spending on people to be innovative. And then hiring innovative.
We have one last question in the back.
I just wanted to add that so my first company I ever worked was TomTom, and I went public too, and I was the same 30 employee, 1,500, but the founders always said, we're going to change, we have to change, because we can talk about it. With Adyen, we made a decision to actually say from the beginning, we're not going to change. We're going to keep on working the way we did. That's why we have the formula, that's what we adhere to. So it's actually really important that you have in any organization, when I talk to any applicant, look at videos on YouTube. What do the founders say? What do they stand for? How do they act? Once they act actually still as somebody who would still work in a startup, it reflects on the whole organization.
Thanks,
But
Volker.
at the end of the day, it's great. The larger they get, the less the innovation, the more startups, I guess. So that's the cycle. So one last question in the back.
Just before the question, thank you to Wipro for organizing this great panel, great speakers, so just thank you. As you scale the organization and your individual organizations from individual contributors to having managers, how did you manage that? And did you allow individual contributors to move to managers? How did you deal with top performers who want to get out of being an individual contributor? Or did you keep those two universes completely separate?
For us, it's usually the other way around. The top performers want to stay ICs. They don't want to move on. We always hire people that actually enjoy what they do, and we are very clear in that there is no guarantee for any career or any next step. So we actually pick people so first of all, we try to stay very flat to start with. Management is never a good thing, but the bigger you grow, of course, you need some people to do also admin stuff and management duties. But we also pick people that didn't expect it, where we really feel these people actually have it in them in the next 1 or 2 years.
I think it's an interesting thing because I think it comes from Dilbert, but I believe it's a management truism anyway. It's sort of like everyone's promoted to their level of incompetence. So just because you're really good as an individual contributor does not mean you'll be good at even managing one person, let alone like hundreds. Whereas somebody could be absolutely horrible as a subject matter expert, but a great manager of people, really inspiring, able to kind of get the march on that. So I think when you're choosing to be an individual contributor or to be a manager of people, just recognize they're different skill sets. And I would look at, like, if you want to be a successful manager of people, it doesn't mean that you know your subject area very well, necessarily. So you have to kind of look like one of those additional skills that I want, and that goes both ways.
What I wanted to add here is ask them, I think we haven't touched that today. Well, you have touched it in the beginning, but in my experience, it's always, the most important thing is that the person is happy. If you feel that this really makes him happy, that he becomes a manager, sure. But like really ask him the question. And that's why I said, like, usually the people that are the top performers, that's what they're good in, that's where they're happy. And they just ask for a promotion because they feel the social environment actually pressures them into asking for it. Because it's a given, but you don't have to.
I guess one of the things that, I'm sure all of you have noticed, I think, in today's times, I think the ambitions are growing very fast, right? Like, college graduate wants to come in 2-3 years down the line, he wants to keep moving up the ladder. But I agree, not all of them want to choose that path. Some people enjoy whatever they do, but for people who want to aspire or keep going up the ladder, I think you need to help them to kind of, determine a certain steps of being, how to be successful or how to keep learning in order to become X, Y, Z, whether you want to become a people manager, whether you want to run engineering, run sales, marketing, whatever it is. I think the onus lies on everybody in the company, if someone aspires to do that, to help them, or at least share their best experiences to let these kind of people move on. HR also has certain policies or guidelines in terms of how to move people, but it depends on individual interests and depends on how people like to move fast in their careers.
That's an investment.
2 words that you probably won't guess this next. Reward success. So if someone has been super successful and they say, I want to manage, it would make me happy, then let them manage and then be a mentor to them in that management.
So thank you very much to all the panelists. It's a great